Hello everyone! So in last week's video, you all asked me to show you how I create my budget, how that works, and some tips and tricks on how to organize your finances on the long run. So today in this video, we are doing that. I have Google Spreadsheets open, and this is what I use for my budgets. It has the advantage of being always on the cloud, so you can access your budgets in any device with your Google account, and it's also free, so you don't have to pay for any kind of subscription to create your budget here. As you can see, I already have a couple of budgets that I'm working on here, and for the purpose of this video, we are going to use this spreadsheet that I opened yesterday, and it's called Experimental Budget. Of course, all the values you see in this spreadsheet are only fictional because there was absolutely no need to work with real numbers to show you how I do this, and you should be able to customize all of your numbers and your real values into your spreadsheets. Instead of sharing this spreadsheet with you because I think it will give you a lot more trouble than it should, I will show you exactly what's a template that I use for my experimental budget, which is the exact same budget in my budget for 2020. So the only thing you have to do is go down here and click the plus button, and then you have an option for create new spreadsheets and an option for choose template. And we are going to go for the choose template option. And these are the basic templates that Google Spreadsheets offers you. Of course, you can find many other templates online, but these are the main ones that they're offered with the software. And the one I use is the annual budget under the personal tab. When you open your annual budget, you'll have 4 different tabs down here. This is very important because all information you introduce in your setup, expenses, and income tabs will be reflected in your final summary tab. So as you can see, when you open a new template, there's no information besides the categories of expenses and the overall layout of the budget spreadsheet. All of these cells are already formatted, so they add the numbers and then create averages and transport all that information over to your summary tab. When you open a new spreadsheet, you also need to take into account that there is some information and there are some cells that you can alter, you can delete or add, but if you delete or alter other kinds of cells, especially if there are formulas, you'll probably alter the formatting of the whole table, and that will mess up with the results in the end. So you'll have to be very careful with that. Basically, the only thing you should be doing with an annual budget is to look at all of these categories and understand if they apply to you. And for the sake of simplicity, it's better to delete any rows that do not apply to you. Or at least you can minimize the whole categories using these buttons right here. So for instance, I do not have any children, so this is an expense that will not fit in my budget. So I'm going to minimize, so it collapses all of the rows related to children, so I don't have to see them. Just to give you an example of how to customize the categories in your budget, in case of debt, I do have credit card, I do have a student loan, but for instance, in my country, we don't have federal and state taxes, so I don't need to have this row right here. So I'm just going to delete this just like that. Since I do have another type of debt, which is Social Security, I'm going to add a new row to the debt column. So if I want to insert a row above taxes, federal, I will just click this button and it will insert a new row. I can then introduce the name of the category, and as you can see, these cells are not formatted. So if I want to copy the formatting of these cells to this new row, all I have to do is just click and drag, and this will be formatted. If I start adding up the numbers of Social Security, you will see them adding up in the end of the spreadsheet. So I'm going back to my main dashboard and I'm going to open this experimental budget spreadsheet, which I created yesterday. The first thing you have to do in your spreadsheet is to configure your starting balance. This starting balance is basically the money you've saved from 2019 and you're transporting over to 2020. This is basically all of the money you have in your balance, and you'll be working with this basis for 2020. Of course, that in case you don't have anything in your starting balance, all you have to do is introduce a 0. So when we go to expenses, I've customized some of these categories, but not all of them. and I've introduced a couple of numbers so you can see how this works. I must say that working with a budget template that is already configured and formatted is great because you don't have to worry about creating the formulas and having the total and the average columns, because the template will calculate everything for you in the long run. This is especially important if you want a summary tab like this one right here, which is a little bit more complex to configure. So if you can work with a pre-existing template, I think it's much better for you to simplify the whole process and not feel overwhelmed by it. So a great thing about these templates is that they calculate the total of money you're spending on a specific category over the year, and then they also calculate the average of money you're spending per month on that category. So for instance, here in my education tab, I have tuition, which is covered the whole year minus July and August, because that's when we don't have classes, so we don't have to pay for tuition. The spreadsheet automatically calculates how much I'm spending in tuition for the whole year. A good thing to notice is that if you do want to insert a number and copy and paste that number for the whole year, you can do so by clicking and dragging the cell instead of having to manually copy and paste the number in each individual cell. So for instance, in the case of health insurance, I will just write down, I will type $50 per month. And because it's a repeated expense, I will just click and drag it across the row. I think it's really important for you to be as thorough as you can with your expenses. Even if we are talking about something that can seem like a really low value per month, I think it's important for you to track it and understand that a part of your income is going to that very low expense, but even so, it's going for that specific thing. In my case, I have a Google One subscription, which is like 30.33 euros per month. And that's actually 40 euros. In this case, it's formatted as dollars. So I'm spending 40 euros per year to pay for my Google One subscription. And when you see it like this, you actually understand how much more expensive it is than you thought it was. So I think it's really important to have this total and this average column in your spreadsheet. It gives you an overall picture of where your money is going. And then you can understand whether this is really important or not. For instance, in my particular case, I can look at this Google One subscription, understand that I'm spending 40 euros per year to pay for that, and start wondering whether I really need that subscription and whether I could just be saving 40 euros per year to have a nice dinner or pay for a concert ticket or something like that. Another thing I like to do with my budget is to create some symbols and signals to understand whether there's an expense that's going to be increased or decreased. Here in my utilities tab, I have rents and internet. So if in 2020 I was expecting my rent to increase at any part of the year, I would copy and paste this vertical triangle so I can see that at the first glance that my rent is expected to go up, and I have to prepare for that in terms of finances. If for some case I'm expecting a decrease in anything, like in this case my internet contract, my internet subscription, I will insert an inverted triangle to signal that the money I'm spending in the beginning of the year is expected to go down. If you want to signal the exact month where that value is going to increase or decrease, what I suggest is inserting a column on that specific date. So in this case, I'm planning for my internet bill to be reduced on March 2020, and I'm seeing that my rent is going to go up on June 2020. If you're absolutely positive about how much will be the increase or decrease in this value, I just suggest that you insert the final number into the cell and then copy and paste that across the row. In case you're still not sure of how much the value is going to increase or decrease, but you do have an estimate, what I usually do is create that estimate on the following months, and then I color those cells with a different color. So I know that this is not an actual number, it's just an estimate of how much I'll be paying for rent in the following months. For me, this trick is especially important with that kind of bills that you do not pay the same thing every single month. For instance, I have here a $60 electricity bill. I'm actually not aware of how much electricity I'll be paying per month because it really depends on the season, whether I have the AC on, whether I'm spending more time at home. So actually this is a rough estimate of how much electricity I'm going to pay. So because this is not an actual number, I'm just going to highlight all of these cells and then fill them in with a light color. The same actually applies to my water bill, but it does not apply to my internet bill. Since this is a contract, I'm absolutely positive that this is how much internet I'm going to pay for the whole year. I know that many people really like to create even more complex and more customized spreadsheets, but I really like to keep mine very simple. So these are the general principles of filling in your expenses spreadsheet. Now you have to also fill in your income spreadsheet. This is very important because if you do not have an income tracked in your spreadsheet, you will not be aware of how much money you are making in the long run. Without your expenses and your income, you'll not be able to calculate your balance, and your balance is really important to understand what kind of money you can actually save in the end of the month, and in this case, because it's an annual spreadsheet, in the end of the year. Filling in your income in a spreadsheet is very self-explanatory, but I would advise you to remember that you have to be cohesive in terms of taxes. Of course, this depends by country and also by job. But for instance, if you are under a contract and your taxes are automatically deducted from your paycheck in the end of the month, I would advise you to fill in the number in your paycheck income tab with the money you get after taxes and not before taxes, because that will leave you with an undefined result and you'll actually be spending more money because of taxes, and that tax money will not be into your spreadsheet. So if you're under that kind of system, I would advise you to insert the income after taxes and not before taxes. Of course, that if you have a different scenery like I do, and your taxes are not automatically deducted from your paycheck, then you should have two separate rows. You should have your paycheck row with the money you get before taxes. And then in my case, I like to put in my expenses the taxes that I owe to the government each month. And that's way easier for me to calculate, but that's only because I'm not under that kind of contract that deducts my taxes from my paycheck every single month. After you fill in your expenses and your income, I would advise you to check your summary. And this summary is basically an informational sheet. As you can see, you should not edit this tab at all because you'll just mess with the formatting and the calculations. And it basically just shows you in different ways. So in forms of a graph, and then you have here a summary table. It just shows you where your money is going and whether you're in a good financial situation or not. Your income line should always be above your expenses line in the case of this specific spreadsheet because it's experimental and I was just working with fictional numbers. Of course, that my expenses are way above my income. You'll also see here in this table where you are spending your money and what's your biggest expense. In this case, it's my utilities, but in a real life scenario, it will probably be my student debt. It's very practical to have this summary because you can actually see where your money is going and you can work with those numbers and try to reduce and cut back on some of your expenses. If you're interested in the whole self-improvement movement, I highly recommend a documentary called The Joy of Winning, which explores how understanding game theory can help you analyze any situation and get what you want to win most of the time. If you want to watch the whole documentary, you can do so by signing up for free for CuriosityStream, who is sponsoring today's video and has thousands of documentaries in different categories and was created by the original founder of Discovery. As a special gift, you can use the promo code StudyCorner or click the link in the description box to have a free 30-day membership, which will give you more than enough time to watch The Joy of Winning as well as many other documentaries in their list. It's also available for a ton of different devices, so you can keep learning everywhere, and after your free membership, it just costs $2.99 a month, and I think that's pretty cheap for almost unlimited learning opportunities. If you like these types of videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because there's a new video coming your way every single week, and I will see you next Friday. Bye guys!